Hi, Savannah.
Hey, Emily.
So this album from 2019.
Yes, it's called Lover.
Yes. And I heard songs in the wild.
You did.
I did. It was an unfortunate introduction.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It was songs that I did not like.
Uh-huh.
And I continued to not like them into our listen through of this album together.
But more to the point, you also had people like, or articles at least that you had read about them that made you dislike them even more.
Yeah, well, the reasons I think we'll probably get into later.
Yeah.
But the well was poisoned for me.
Mm.
And so just to so nobody's worried, I did come around and listen to it a second time all the way through and enjoyed it much more.
So glad.
But what made the difference was probably Savannah being enthusiastic and firmly enthusiastic about this album, despite my slings and arrows and assaults on this album, which is very dear to her heart. And yes. I was so unkind with my words.
You know what? I'm in a parasocial relationship with Taylor Swift. I know this. I feel like I'm her friend. And to be fair, in the Miss Americana documentary, she says that she also feels like she's friends with the Swifties. Like we grew up together. So I get a little heated about it, but we got past it.
We got through it.
We got over it.
I feel like, we joked about our friendship being in danger with 1989.
Even more so with Lover.
More so. Like, this was real. It was real time.
I cried. I went in.
You were right to cry.
It's fine. I went in bright-eyed and bushy-tailed expecting, like, I didn't know that you had listened to any of these songs previously. So I was like, she's just going to love it as much as I love it.
So tell me some things about this album that you like.
What do I not like? Well, okay, there are a couple things I don't like about this album. But first, I just love the vibes. Capital V, the vibes of this album are everything. It is pink and blue and fluffy clouds and literally such a breath of fresh air after the Reputation era, which is what we were sitting in, right? Like we sat in the Reputation era, which is solid and fire and all of those things for like 2 years. And, there's only so much of the Reputation era that you can drink down before you're like, wow, I really want to listen to some like upbeat pop music. And boy, did she come through.
She sure did.
And this came out, I'm forgetting the exact month that it came out in 2019, but it was just in time for actual summertime. So this album is full of summer bops. Mm-hmm. And it came out in August, which for some states is really gearing towards the end of summer, if not getting like a little cooler. For California, it's fire season.
That blows my mind that August could be considered fall. And like I lived in the Midwest,
not
like
fall, but it's like it's starting to cool down. It's the cooler part of summer, at least in Spokane.
But here it's the worst.
Here it's the worst. It's literally fire season. Just all the brush.
We have a season for fire, and it's August.
It's August.
Yeah,
those aren't clouds. That's smoke,
that's
baby.
Smoke. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so it pops out in August when we're still in the heat of summer, and like there's even a song called "Cruel Summer" on this album, and this is the album that makes you want to like roll your windows down and scream it at the top of your lungs. It's only good vibes. And then another thing that I really enjoy about this album is that I feel like Taylor gets to be completely herself on this album. And one of the reasons for that is because she's in a new record label. Mm-hmm. So we've talked about this and hinted at this for many moons now. And she started off with Big Machine Records, right, for her first 6 albums. There was a major dispute when her contract ended in 2018 because she wanted to own the rights to her own music. The songs that she wrote on her bedroom floor when she was 12, 14, 15, 16. So Scott Borchetta sold Big Machine Records to Scooter Braun, who Taylor had said multiple times was like not a great guy, a bullying type of person.
Not somebody she wanted to work with
or have her music owned by. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so she actually found out at the same time as everybody else, at the same time as the rest of the public, that her music was being sold to Scooter Braun, and then also that he was selling that music to someone else. She says, and I believe her, obviously, I would believe her. She says that he never gave her the opportunity to purchase her own music, which she has always wanted to own her own masters. And he says, I gave her the option to do that. You would say that. I don't know. Can't confirm or deny, but I believe Taylor. So she signs on with Republic Records, which is distributed by Universal Music Group, something, UMG. And they are like, do what you want, Taylor. You go, girl. We support you. And so in her Miss Americana documentary, which was named after Miss Americana and the Heartbreak Prince on this album, she talks about how this is like, well, specifically the song Me is like if you cracked open her imagination and just this is what pours out from all of that. And it's a song, it's an album that is full of pink and blue vibes, and it's dedicated to her love. And I think the closest thing to a slam track on this album is I Forgot You Existed, where she goes, it isn't love, it isn't hate, it's just indifference. I forgot you existed.
It's the mildest, gentlest slam track
you could
in
ever
Taylor Swift history.
Yeah. And I think that's one of those things that like she might have like thought of this person and was like, oh yeah, I was in a relationship with him, and now that I remembered for a second, I'll write a song about how I totally forgot. And then we'll put that aside. And what a gentle, like, meh. That's a feeling you can have about a person, I guess.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm talking a lot, but there's so many things that I just love.
Yeah, keep going.
Oh man. So Cruel Summer, I feel like, is truly just like, that's a summer bop.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that one.
Scream that at the top of your lungs. It has great lines like, always waiting for you just to cut to the bone. I'm like, cutting to the, man, it gets you. There's like garden imagery, loving that. Lover very much sounds like a wedding song, and she designed it that way. She was like, I want a song that someone can play at their wedding. Well, you did it, Taylor.
Yeah, that's the song.
That is the song. It's so adorable, and it's got all of those vibes. And then one of my other favorite songs is Paper Rings. And I like shiny things, but I'd marry you with paper rings. That just like turned on its head my vision of a romantic relationship. I feel like for such a long time when you're growing up as a small girl, you're like, a wedding and the diamond ring and like the boy. Yeah. And
he's also there.
He's there. But my dress and all of these things. And then she's like, but this mature love, when you find the love of your life, it's like you could do away with all of those things and it would be perfect. And what a cute idea. What a thing. So
I actually know a couple who got engaged with a string of red thread.
Oh, that's adorable. Like the red string of fate, or
I guess it was more like in her imagination as a child, she thought, well, what if I got engaged in a time of great hardship and there was no way for people to get precious metals and all this stuff. And so in her imagination, she was like, well, I guess we could get engaged with a string of red thread. And then lo and behold, this thing called COVID-19 happened. And there was this global shutdown of shipping. And so the ring didn't arrive in time for the proposal date. And so he had a string of red thread. And it was incredibly sweet.
That is the sweetest thing. So yes, all of those types of feelings are the feelings that I get when I think of the Lover album. That's why it's one of my favorites. There are definitely songs on here that deal with heavier subjects for sure. And then she gets a little more, I would say, political on this album.
Yes. And that is part of what poisoned the well for me. What you said about her kind of getting to do her own thing. That has pros and cons.
Yeah.
And I think, I've been waiting for her to kind of branch out from the romantic themes. We've talked about that. Like, I wanted her to pull in some bigger ideas, talk about some bigger things. And she did. And those political tracks don't really add to the conversation. The opinions expressed are very mainstream. She doesn't really... Here I am coming in with criticism right off the bat. That was not my intention, because I did come around and start to like this album, but I wanted to explain my reaction to those tracks. Yeah. That the poetry of them wasn't particularly good. There are great poems on this album. Yeah. But
I think, are we talking about You Need to Calm Down and Me, specifically those two songs?
Those two, also The Man. I would extend this to the Man. Just there's not really a unique take. Not that every artist has to say something wholly brand new, but what you want from an artist is that they're saying what they see in a unique way that only they can do. And I just felt like the political tracks on this album were just so so pat. They were kind of the party line. Like, I don't care if an artist disagrees with me politically, takes a different line, but like, you should make me think with what you say about the stuff.
I agree with that more on like, you need to calm down. And specifically me, I personally don't love them like spelling in a song.
Yeah.
It does feel a little bit childish to me. I appreciate the music video because it's very like out of pocket. There's like unicorns and cats and like, but you also had Brendan Urie from Panic at the Disco, and this is what track you put him on. I'm so angry, but like, but you know, but he's on there. His voice is gracing this album, so
yeah, the lyrics on that one were so lackluster. And like, I don't even think of that necessarily as a political track on its face. Like, I know it kind of became that afterwards, I think. But just the lyrics are so lame guys, cool chicks. Like, it's a parallelism of two things. Like, that's the most I can say for it.
No, and that's fair. I think the most disagreement that we had probably on the whole album was the man, because I think we think very differently about it. But I also think that the man, while probably her take on these like gender rolled ideas is more broad, I think that the man is trying to be very specific to her own situation in the music industry, which is where I would disagree a little bit and say that I do think she's coming at it from a fresh take from her own perspective with that idea. Like, she's even bringing in examples like Leonardo DiCaprio. He gets to date all these super young chicks that are like 25 years his younger, and everyone's like, where's his Oscar? But I date someone, I mean, now who's like my age, and that's all you can talk about, not about my musical
like, how
inspirations.
dare she date so many people?
Yeah, and it's like, but Leo had 3 girls on one boat. Like, but wait, what? And like, and her saying like, I get to be mad about that kind of discrepancy, like on a red carpet, if we're gonna go to a music award show, and the men are being asked like, who was your musical influence for this? Like, tell us about your most recent work. And they get to Taylor Swift and they're like, who are you dating? What are you wearing? And she's like, excuse me, I am a songwriter. That's why I'm here. I think that's really what she's trying to get at. So for me, I think that's where we disagree a little.
Yeah. And I think those are fair things to be annoyed by and complain about.
Yeah.
I just, as a broader political statement, just like, I felt that she was unfairly robbed of her confidence by the premises of the song, where the line that says, I'm so sick of running as fast as I can, wondering if I'd get there quicker if I was a man. It's like, well, where are you trying to run, first of all? And where are the men running? Have you asked them if they're delighted to be running so fast? Like, there's just a lot of, I don't know, I would insert a lot of Jordan Peterson data here. Just be like,
yeah, I can see that, but mostly what I think of when I think the idea she's trying to grasp with that line is that not like, if she were a man specifically, would her career have gone farther? Because I think the answer is no. She is a woman telling her stories, and that's part of the power behind it. Absolutely. I think what she's getting at is that if she didn't have to deal with the hurdles that men don't have to deal with, would her career as a woman have gone farther? Like in her sexual assault case, there's a line referencing that in this song. When everyone believes you, what's that like? So a lot of the narrative going on around that time was, 1, she's doing this for attention, and 2, she's doing this for money, which is why she turned around and countersued that man for $1, which she ended up winning. But a lot of it was like, people don't believe her. They don't believe the story that she is putting forth. And as a female songwriter, that's like, I just feel like that's a very feminine problem when it comes to sexual assault specifically,
and
not
especially
being believed
in the arts, right? Hollywood, the casting couch, like the Me Too thing happened for a reason.
Exactly.
And these industries are overrun with mistreatment of women. And
even just like all of the shaming of her dating life in general, it's like, I guess, you know, hindsight's 2020. Like, yes, her name was in headlines, so maybe that brought more people attention, like more attention to her, even though it was negative attention. But I think, what could she have accomplished if those headlines were not about who she was dating, but like what is she writing? What is she up to? You know?
Mm-hmm.
So I think those are all the questions that she's posing. And I think that this song actually is doing its job because we're having this conversation.
That's a very good point.
You know?
Yeah.
But moving on, I do want to talk about The Archer because I did not like this song for a really long time when I first listened to it. I was like, it's kind of a meh song for me musically. I was like, oh, The Archer, like Sagittarius, her birth sign, whatever.
Wow, I would never have made that connection. So you're like, oh yeah, of course, whatever. Okay.
But so I kind of wrote that song off. But as last week, whenever we listened to this, I was listening more to the lyrics, and I'm like, oh, this is a song where I feel like she's actually starting to grow up a little bit more, and she's saying, I'm tired of fighting, I'm tired of the drama. I've been the archer, I've been the prey. One of the lines specifically says, I never grew up, and she's tired of that. And then she also draws attention to a theme that's been throughout her discography. Who could stay? She says, she's screaming, who could ever leave me, darling, but who could stay? I think one of her biggest fears is being left alone and feeling alone in the situations that she's in her life. And so I feel like The Archer is actually a very like grown up concept of like, I don't want to be doing these childish things anymore, engaging in these useless fights. I just don't want to be alone anymore. And I'm like, wow, that's very sobering.
Yeah, I would say sober is a good word to describe the tone of this song. She's kind of reckoning with her dark side. We've seen her do that a little bit in the conversations we've had about reckoning with her mistakes in the past. But this one is in a new way. It's kind of more entangled, less removed. She's getting so far into her reflection, far enough. She's reached enough maturity in that reflection to start to recognize herself in the things that she's done and say I don't want that, but what if I do? And start to recognize how entangled our desires are.
Yeah. And I think that really speaks, I agree with that. And then when you take that into account with the overall attitude of the album, which is very positive, it's a more mature, we're seeing a more mature woman who is looking back on her life and seeing the positives and negatives of her own actions and still choosing to have joy and see light and delight in things, which I think is one of the more winsome qualities about her. She's always very hopeful. She likes liking things, likes having fun. There are some artists you can listen to that it's like, oh, wow, you're depressed. And you're still depressed, and you're selling albums because you're depressed, and I'm so sorry. And I would say that she probably struggles with a little bit of depression when you look at her lyrics. I'm like, dang girl, that's rough. But she's not presenting it in a way that's like, come to this depression with me. Yeah. Exactly. Okay, but you said that you turned a corner. So tell me what that was like. What are the things that you started to become new and fresh for you after you listened to it the second time through?
The second listen through was so pleasant.
Yay.
And part of that, I think, is the musical maturity, where the style of 1989, remember how we were like, I was like, this is a pop album, but it's really just kind of lackluster, and the instrumentation choices are weird, and like it doesn't sound like it's doing what it tried to do. I feel like this album did what 1989 was trying to do in terms of musical style and good escalation of songs, and the rhythms worked mostly really well, with a few exceptions. Notably me. Like, I don't think the rhythm in that song works. I just feel like she really phoned it in with that track. I don't get it. Because we know she can do so much better.
I think she was focusing so much on having fun with Brendan Urie, and like, same girl, if Brendan Urie is with me, I'm trying to play on set too. And she wrote the song without him, but yeah, I don't know.
But the vibes are good, the energy is good, the rhythms are good, the bridges are good. Just a lot of things that kind of didn't click with 1989 really clicked with this. And so, yeah, Cruel Summer. I also, the word cruel in front of a period of time also, of course, has to harken back to April is the Cruelest Month, the beginning of the Wasteland by T.S. Eliot, and also in turn Chaucer.
Yes.
And all of that. So like
she's still doing her thing.
She's doing her thing. And in The Archer, I feel like all the king's horses, all the king's men couldn't put me back together again. Like obviously Humpty Dumpty is going on there, but like, why Humpty Dumpty?
Yeah.
And I'm going to be chewing on that for a while, because I'm like, I cannot figure out why this is here. And I can't decide, like, maybe it's because she was like, I don't know, put in a Humpty Dumpty thing. Like, maybe it was nothing, but maybe it wasn't.
And that is the power of Taylor Swift,
Yes.
because we know that she puts Easter eggs everywhere in her songs.
And now the Easter eggs are broken. They fell off the wall.
Yeah. Oh. But like, so she even says sometimes that like Swifties will find meaning in like dates of like release dates and things that she didn't even mean to happen. And she's like, well, cool, I totally meant to do that. But sometimes I'm like, no, you're just smarter than me.
Well, I think that's part of the life of an artist too. And I mean, if I can say the afterlife of an artist, where like sometimes the things that appear in a work of literature that the author did not intend can be even more important and more central to the meaning of the work than what the author thought it meant. You know, it's sort of the wonder of art.
It takes on a life of its own.
Yeah. And you're in the process of making it, you're putting so much into it that you don't even understand if you're pouring yourself into your work, which is kind of what makes a good artist.
Yeah, absolutely. And she talks about that. I did watch the Miss Americana documentary.
Of course you did.
Part of it to prep for this. But in that, she was talking about the release of Red, and All Too Well was such a painful song for her for obvious reasons, which we've talked about. And she's like, I didn't really want to sing it that much, but then I saw how much the fans were screaming the lyrics back at me, and it became one of my favorite songs to perform because I wasn't thinking about what I was thinking about when I wrote it. I was thinking about the joy that it brought my fans, and now we're closer. And
it's brought something to someone else, and that experience has given it new meaning.
Exactly. So what are your favorite songs on the album?
Songs. Lover is adorable.
Yeah.
Afterglow is also really nice.
I love Afterglow.
And Daylight. I would say those are my top three.
Awesome. I mean, Afterglow and Daylight kind of go in the same box in my brain. Is that why you like them both together, or?
Probably. I think musically they hit right for me. Yeah, I don't know that I have a lot more deep thoughts than that about this album. Like, this isn't, for me, like, it's still a pop album, right? It's not a meditative, moody album. So it's not like, I don't feel like there was a poem necessarily on this album that like grabbed my poetry imagination, but these songs grabbed my music imagination.
Perfect. Something to put on in the background and like dance to, vibe to.
Yeah. I did feel a lot like this album was like listening to an Enya album. Like, not in a weird, like, she is very, very musically different from Enya, obviously. But like, you put on an Enya album and you just go about your day and you know that Enya's there. Yeah. And it all sounds like Enya. It's a cohesive musical experience.
Yes.
And that is very much what you get with this album.
Yeah. You know what you're in for when you put on Lover. It's all the same, like, candy in your veins, writing with a glitter gel pen. Yeah, situation.
Without being too samey. Like, I do think there's meaning. A lot of tonal variety, fair amount of musical style variety. Like, it's a well put together album, in my opinion, with the balance it strikes between cohesion and variety.
I totally agree. I think a couple of the heavier songs on the album are some of my favorites too. Death by a Thousand Cuts. For a long time, I was wondering why this wasn't the track 5, or Soon You'll Get Better. Why is that not the track 5? For the reasons that we talked about when we were discussing The Archer. I'm like, oh, I get it now. I understand why she put that as her track 5. But Death by a Thousand Cuts is so, I'm trying to find the right word for it. It really just, it encapsulates a feeling of melancholy and a what if in a relationship that has passed. I tend to think that this is about Harry Styles, but that is because I think all of her songs that I don't know who they're about, I'm like, it's probably Harry Styles. But I mean, I have a couple reasons for thinking that. One of the lines is, if the story's over, why am I still writing pages? Mm-hmm. And I think she does write at least a couple more songs about him later.
Mm-hmm. And that's a theme that she's used before. Mm-hmm. The storybook and the ending that's not the ending.
Yes.
Like that's continuous from previous things.
Yes. And then you wouldn't know this song because it's released on the 1989,
like the
re-recording,
deluxe.
Taylor's version.
Okay.
There's a song that she puts out that's a vault track called Is It Over Now? And that one, 1989 is almost exclusively about Harry Styles. And so if the story's over and Is It Over Now, kind of, they feel the same to me. And then also another line in the song is, gave up on me like I was a bad drug, which harkens back to Clean for me in my mind immediately. But I don't know why. It's got some really interesting lyrics in here. Chandeliers flickering here because you boarded up the windows of the love, but you're still looking through those windows. I don't know. It gives the right vibes. That's all I'm trying to say.
Vibes are the word of the day.
Yeah, sorry. I was saying that 10 times. And then the other one that's like a real tearjerker that I was proud of myself that I didn't actually cry when we sat there together was Soon You'll Get Better. Mm-hmm. And that's about her mom who was diagnosed with cancer, I think a couple years before this song was actually put out. And if the subject matter itself isn't reason enough to cry, I mean, some of these lyrics are just real tearjerkers. Holy orange bottles, each night I pray to you. What a like raw emotion to think about, and then you've got formerly the Dixie Chicks, now the Chicks, doing their little ooh-ahs in the background.
Which makes it a country song.
For sure. For sure. That's her roots. She's never gonna fully get away from it. No,
but
she loves it.
Yeah.
I know delusion when I see it in the mirror.
That's a good line.
That is a good line. I'm just so anyone that's ever had a loved one that's sick can really relate to this song.
Can we discuss Paper Rings a little bit more?
Yeah.
Because I agree, it's incredibly cute. Sentiment is A+. Okay, so here's my experience with my husband's wedding ring. I initially bought him a ring that was titanium and rosewood because he loves titanium and I am old-fashioned, and I'm like, oh, something can be made out of wood that isn't normally made out of wood. Let's do that.
Let's do it.
And turns out there's a reason that wood is not a usual wedding ring material, is that it's less durable.
Much less
so
durable.
We have replaced his wedding ring. His current wedding ring is now titanium and redwood with a rose gold inlay.
Why would you do this?
Well, so originally the problem was that the wood was on the inside. So it was like,
now the problem is that the wood is on the outside.
Right. So like, just saying, there's something to like the symbolism of the permanence of the object.
Yes.
Because like we're starting to talk about replacing the second ring, and it's like, this is a highly sentimental object. Like I'm glad we chose the first one. I'm glad we chose the second one. It just sucks to replace it, even though like, you don't hate the next one. Like the next one grows to contain all of the love that the first two did, but it's
not the wedding ring you exchanged on your wedding day.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, and like he has to take it off if he's washing his hands or showering, or because it's made of wood. And like one of our other friends is like, oh yeah, this wedding ring, I don't think I've taken it off in 7 years, and he's like, my husband is like, oh, that sounds kind of nice.
What a nice feeling.
There's something to that. So like, I don't know, I just wanted to like bring that into the conversation of
that
like
paper rings are a bad idea.
Yes.
I think that's so clear. Wait, that's what you wanted to say? Was that paper rings are a bad idea?
It sounds obvious when you put it that way.
Yes, I agree with you. But I think what you can take from this song as consolation, because apparently these two paper rings, I mean, they did not really get married in real life, but in the song, if they got married with paper rings, they still have the maturity of their relationship that happened. They met one night and now she reads all the books beside his bed, and all of these cute little lyrics.
It's almost like they should get married with like real rings though.
Oof.
is that gonna not age well when I find out how this relationship ended?
Yeah, no.
Uh-oh.
No, it's not.
Bummer.
But I already told you. This is Joe Alwyn. I mean,
Oh,
yeah.
you told me that, and
this
I
is
forgot.
an ode to Joe Alwyn. It's going to cut even deeper when we come across a song.
I'm afraid. I'm very afraid.
It's called You're Losing Me.
Oh no.
And
oh no.
yeah, don't worry. It's not for a couple more albums because she's with him for 6 years. So
Okay.
it doesn't happen for a long time.
Okay.
But anyway, so listeners, don't get married with paper rings. Get married with real rings.
Use
brought
metal.
to you by Emily.
Yep. Learn from my personal tragic experience. It's like a Taylor Swift song.
Oof. Okay, so in 2 weeks, we are going to do folklore.
Yes, I'm so excited.
I am so excited as well. But I want to know what you rate this album now
Oh, that's tough.
so that we can have like a good baseline going in. What are we trying to beat with folklore?
Let's see. I said Reputation was what, a 6? Like a solid
six. Yeah.
6.5?
Well,
Wait, no, because I think I do like Reputation better
really?
than Lover. Yeah.
I know. Okay, so I know that you said on our last episode that it was a solid 6, but when we first listened to it in my house, you said Reputation was a 7.
What, really?
So we can maybe retcon and say
Okay.
it's a 7 and this is a 6.
Yeah, that feels right.
Okay.
Okay. Rewrite history right here.
Rewriting
now.
history. I'm not lying to you. On my couch, you said it was a 7, and I was like, ooh.
I do believe you.
Cool. Okay, retconning. Reputation 7. Paper rings. Lover 6. And we're going into folklore. And then after that is the sister album, Evermore, but that's in 4 weeks. So
Great.
great. And we have a lot of people to thank.
We do. Among them, Joseph, our editor, Rebecca, our media manager, Talitha, our design lead, you, our listener. Thank you for tuning in.
Why
What
are
else
you
are
being
we-
so awkward?
Because I'm trying to remember all the things to say at the end of an episode.
This is brought to you by DieCast Media Group.
Sure is.
It's a production of that group.
And you can email us at makemeaswiftie@diecastmediagroup.com. And that is a mouthful, so it will be in the show notes.
You can also contact us on Instagram with the same handle, Make Me a Swiftie, either direct message or comment on our posts. Our media manager, Rebecca, would love that. And if you would like to support us, always encouraged, never demanded, there will be a link to our Patreon in the show notes. For real this time. I did lie last time. But for real this time, there will be.
We can retcon that. We can go back and edit the description.
I will be doing that,
All right.
yes.
Sweet. See you next time, friends.
Bye.